One of these SUVs has a critical flaw that dealers won't tell you about, and it could cost you thousands in repairs. I'm about to show you which one and why the other might be the smartest $30,000 you'll ever spend. The $30,000 SUV market is absolutely brutal right now. You've got the Volkswagen T-Roc and the Honda HR-V fighting for your money. And both companies will tell you theirs is the better choice. But here's what's really going on. I've spent the last month driving both of these vehicles back to back, taking them apart piece by piece, analyzing every single component, and what I found is going to change how you think about compact SUVs. One of these is engineered like a tank. The other has shortcuts that'll make you wish you'd done more research. Let's get into it. Here's the problem with buying a $30,000 SUV in today's market. You're stuck in this weird middle ground where you can't afford the luxury brands. But you also don't want to settle for something cheap and unreliable. You need something that'll last, that's practical, that won't drain your wallet in maintenance costs. And both Volkswagen and Honda know this. They've designed the T-Roc and HR-V to hit that exact price point. But they took completely different approaches to engineering these vehicles. The T-Roc comes from Volkswagen's European design philosophy. It's based on the MQB platform, which is the same foundation used in the Golf, the Tiguan, and even the Audi A3. That's a proven platform with millions of vehicles on the road. The HR-V is Honda's attempt at a subcompact crossover built on a modified version of the Fitz platform. Different engineering approaches, different priorities, different results. So which one is actually better? It's what we're here to figure out. Now, I'm not just talking about which one looks cooler or has a nicer interior. I'm talking about which one is engineered better from the ground up, which one will last longer, which one will cost you less money over 10 years of ownership. That's what really matters. Let's start with the engines, because this is where things get really interesting from an engineering perspective. The T-Roc in most markets comes with a 1.5-liter turbocharged four-cylinder engine. It's a TSI unit, which stands for turbocharged stratified injection. This engine produces around 150 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. Now, some of you might be thinking a 1.5-liter engine is too small for an SUV. But here's the thing about turbocharged engines. They generate power differently than naturally aspirated engines. The turbocharger forces more air into the combustion chamber, which means you can burn more fuel and create more power from a smaller displacement. That 1.5-liter turbo in the T-Roc feels more like a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated engine in terms of power delivery. The advantage is better fuel efficiency. You're hauling around less weight from the engine itself, and during light load conditions like highway cruising, the turbo isn't working hard, so you're just running a small, efficient engine. The HR-V takes a completely different approach. It uses a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated four-cylinder engine. No turbo. This engine makes around 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque. More horsepower than the T-Roc, but significantly less torque. And torque is what you feel when you accelerate. It's what gets you moving from a stop. It's what helps you merge onto highways. The HR-V's engine has to work harder to produce that power because it doesn't have a turbo helping it out. From a pure engineering standpoint, the T-Roc's engine is more advanced. It's variable valve timing, direct injection, turbocharging. These are technologies that improve efficiency and performance. But here's where Honda's philosophy comes in. That naturally aspirated 2.0-liter engine is simpler, fewer parts that can break. No turbocharger that needs replacing after 100,000 miles. No high-pressure fuel system that can develop issues. It's old-school engineering that prioritizes reliability over cutting-edge technology. Now let's talk about transmissions, because this is where one of these vehicles has a serious problem. The T-Roc comes with a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, which Volkswagen calls DSG. Dual-clutch transmissions are interesting pieces of engineering. They basically have two separate clutches, one for odd gears and one for even gears. While you're driving in third gear, the transmission is already preparing fourth gear on the other clutch. When you shift, it just swaps clutches. This happens incredibly fast, faster than any human could shift a manual transmission. The advantage is quick shifts and good fuel efficiency. The problem is reliability. Dual-clutch transmissions have a reputation for issues, especially in stop-and-go traffic. The clutches can wear out prematurely. The mechatronic unit, which is the brain of the transmission, can fail. And when these things break, they're expensive to fix. I'm talking $2,000 to $3,000 for a clutch replacement. Even more if the mechatronic unit needs replacing. The HR-V uses a continuously variable transmission, or CVT. Now, CVTs get a lot of hate online, and some of that hate is deserved. Early CVTs were terrible. They were unreliable, they felt weird to drive, and they broke constantly. But Honda has been refining their CVT technology for years. The CVT in the HR-V is actually pretty good. It's smooth, it's reliable, and Honda has a solid track record with these transmissions. Here's how a CVT works from an engineering perspective. Instead of fixed gears, it uses a belt or chain running between two variable diameter pulleys. As the pulleys change diameter, the gear ratio changes continuously. That's why it's called continuously variable. There are no discrete gear shifts. The engine can always operate at its most efficient RPM for any given speed. The downside is they can feel a bit disconnected when you accelerate hard. The engine revs up and stays at high RPM while the car accelerates. It's called the rubber band effect. But for reliability and efficiency, Honda's CVT is solid. They've solved most of the early problems that plagued CVTs, and maintenance is straightforward. Change the fluid every 30,000 miles, and it'll last the life of the vehicle. Let us move on to suspension and chassis engineering because this reveals a lot about how these vehicles were designed. The T-Roc uses a McPherson strut front suspension and a multi-link independent rear suspension. This is a pretty common setup for modern vehicles. McPherson struts are simple, lightweight, and effective. The multi-link rear gives you better handling and a more comfortable ride because each wheel can move independently. The HR-V also uses McPherson struts up front, but here's where Honda made a compromise. The rear suspension is a torsion beam setup. A torsion beam is basically a solid axle with a twist beam connecting the two wheels. It's cheaper to manufacture and takes up less space, which is why Honda used it. More interior room, lower cost. But the trade-off is handling and ride quality. A torsion beam can't react to bumps as well as an independent suspension. You'll feel more harshness over rough roads, and the handling isn't as sharp.